And we're live. Welcome back or welcome to the Truth Comes to Light podcast, where everything done in the dark is going to come to light. Every single detail in this world that is done in the dark is going to come to light. I'm your host, Jay Colvin, and welcome to the show. For those of y'all that are new, on the Truth Comes to Light podcast, we talk about news from all over the world, the music industry, and more. Please be sure to check out my previous podcast episodes on the channel, and also please be sure to check out Real Spill Wednesdays. On Real Spill Wednesdays, we talk about life topics and motivational quotes. Please, if you're interested, please be sure to tune into Real Spill Wednesdays. I just dropped a real spill, what I learned from high school going on to college. So please, if you're interested in that, be sure to check that out, and also be sure to check out my previous real spills on the channel. Like the video, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications to get the latest updates on when I post a full Real Spill Wednesday or a full podcast episode. Also, follow me on IG, TikTok, and X at the Truth Comes to Light podcast, because who knows, whatever I post on one of those social media platforms is basically like a foreshadow on what I may talk about for my next podcast episode or Real Spill Wednesdays. But if you're not following either one of those social media platforms, either one of those channels on whether IG, TikTok, or X, you won't know about it. I'm going to be more engaged on those social media platforms too. I really want y'all to feel like y'all are, here, and feel like that I'm basically talking to y'all. So I'm going to start posting, suggestions, or like if y'all have any, thing that you want me to talk about, whether that's for my full podcast episode or for Real Spill Wednesdays. I'm going to start posting like, hey, what should I talk about for my next Real Spill Wednesday? Or what should I talk about for my full podcast episode? And if a topic doesn't reach, my podcast episode that I do post on YouTube, but I talk about it, on Instagram or Twitter, mainly those two social media platforms, that's where I'm going to really be talking about what's actually going on in the world. We can just conversate on those social media platforms, because I want y'all to feel like we're all in this together. I don't know how all these other podcasts be doing, but I want y'all to feel as though y'all are accessible to me. Y'all are able to talk to me. So any topics that go on in the world, if I repost it, let's talk about it. Or if something is going on, we can just talk about it just like that I didn't repost or whatever. Like, I want to engage with all of y'all. So I will be getting consistent on my social media platforms, on the Truth Comes to Life podcast. I will be getting active on those platforms. You feel what I'm saying? Also, follow my main page at ryn.j_. I'm going to start promoting that too. I'm going to start promoting basically everything. I really don't promote it as much, but I'm going to start promoting it too. Y'all follow me on IG at ryn.j_. And if you are interested in my personal life, y'all be sure to subscribe to the vlog channel at J Colvin if you are interested in it. If not, it's okay. But if you want to be, in my personal life, should I say, y'all be sure to subscribe to the vlog channel. If I'm not on this channel, I'm posting on that channel. We're being consistent on both channels. That's one thing about me. I don't let y'all down. I'm always consistent. I always post some at least once a week, whether it's on this page or the other page. You'll never see me be inconsistent with this. So, with that in mind, let's get straight into this podcast episode. We're going to do something different. I haven't done it on this podcast channel. I haven't done it at all. We're going to be talking about some sports. For those of y'all that don't know, I'm a huge sports person. I like football, I like basketball. I even like baseball when it gets to the playoffs. You get what I'm saying? I like all of that. I like all sports. If it's interesting, I will watch it. But I haven't really talked about sports and my reactions to certain games and what's going on in the sports world, other than news that's going on with sports players. Like I talked about Kevin Porter Jr. with the whole abuse allegations and all of that. Like I talked about things that happen with players, but I haven't talked about the sports. So for this podcast episode, we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be talking about college football. This has been the topic for the sports world because playoff time will be coming, and rivalry week just passed. This Saturday was rivalry week for pretty much every single one of the universities, and it provided some good, entertaining football for everybody to watch. If you're a Big Ten person, you had Ohio State versus Michigan, which we will be talking about. If you're an SEC person, you had Alabama versus Auburn, that's a good one. You had Florida State versus Florida. We're talking about that too. You had all of these good games that happen. If you like the Pac 12, and the Pac 12 is fixing to be gone after this past Saturday that just passed, should I say. That was the last day of Pac 12 football forever. But you had to finish off the night, you had Cal, and I think you had UCLA. You had Washington versus Washington State. That was a pretty good game. It was chaotic everywhere. So we're going to get straight into it. Me being an Alabama person, we're going to start with the whole Alabama versus Auburn game. Alabama walks into Jordan Hare Stadium and defeats Auburn in a thriller 27-24. Jalen Milroe throws the ball to Isaiah Bond on fourth down and goal from the 30-yard line to give Alabama the go-ahead touchdown with 32 seconds left in the game. Jalen Milroe was 16 of 24 for 259 yards, 2 TDs. He also had 18 carries for 107 yards. He was the leading rusher on the team. Roydell Williams had 8 carries, 30 yards, and a touchdown. Jermaine Burton had 4 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown right before halftime, which was key into winning that game. And then, like I said, Isaiah Bond had 5 receptions for 75 yards and the go-ahead touchdown. Auburn, Peyton Thorne, 5 of 16, 91 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. It's kind of crazy that Auburn this whole entire game didn't even throw for over 100 yards, and they were still in the game. And I'm going to tell you why. You had Javarius Johnson had 2 touchdowns. He had 1 on the ground and 1 receiving, 1 carry, should I say, for 12 yards and 1 touchdown, 4 receptions for 76 yards and a TD. You also had Jarquez Hunter with 14 carries for 97 yards. So those were the 2 people that kept Auburn in the game. It was Jarquez Hunter and it was Javarius Johnson. Because one thing, even though Auburn only had less than 100 yards passing, they were able to run the ball efficiently. They were able to run the ball up and down the field on Alabama. It felt as though we could not stop them on the ground. Peyton Thorne, it's crazy to say this. Like, I went to an Auburn game. I went to Auburn versus Texas A&M, and the same problem from that game is the same problem now. He's not a good quarterback. I'm gonna just keep it real with you. He can't propel them. He can't propel them to a W. I have not seen one game this season to where Peyton Thorne has single-handedly won them the game. I just haven't seen it from him. So he was only 5 of 16. He only completed 5 passes the whole game. 91 yards. Yes, he had that 1 touchdown to Javarius Johnson, but he also had 2 interceptions. One of them was obviously a Hail Mary, so we're really not going to count that one. But the second interception, that was him. But what really, it's crazy because of the simple fact, yes, Alabama won the game, but they won the game by the skin of their teeth. They could have easily lost the game. And it was a back and forth game. No one really had momentum. It felt as though one team was winning, then the other team will come back, then the other team will come back. Alabama struck first, but quickly Auburn came back and scored. Alabama scored right before halftime, which was crucial into propelling them into the W. But they could have easily lost the game because of the simple fact Alabama, it was 20-17. I think it was 20-17. And Alabama had a chance to make it 23-17. And he missed the field goal. Auburn comes back and scored that touchdown, which in the end, if he would have made that field goal, it obviously Alabama could have just drove down the field and got a field goal to potentially just win the game versus having to score a touchdown. Since it was 20-24, they could have easily just went down the field, got a field goal, and they could have won like that. Auburn made some crucial mistakes at the end of the game. Yes, they stopped Alabama. Alabama was forced to punt, and Coy Moore literally dropped the ball. And then, obviously, y'all saw at the end of the game, DJ James did allow the touchdown. And y'all keep on saying, and I'm gonna be straight up because that's my cousin. It's not no bias or nothing. Y'all are coming at DJ James. Yes, he may say that he might have lost the game, but he wasn't the reason that they lost the game. He was the best cornerback on the field. He did his job the whole entire game. He had a phenomenal game, had pass breakups. If it wasn't for that, we would be looking at him clearly different. Y'all would be looking at him clearly different. He is a NFL caliber cornerback, and that's not even me being biased. That's him having a phenomenal season. That's everything that we have seen eye to eye. But we can't just look at that one play and just basically deteriorate this person and basically say that this cornerback needs to not play or what was he doing. It was one play. One play does not define how good a cornerback is. Cornerbacks allow touchdowns like that, but the key to being a good cornerback, you have to make it seem like that play didn't just happen and it's on to the next play. Yes, that was the go-ahead touchdown, but let's not forget that he had pass breakups. The touchdown before halftime, it was just a miscommunication. That's all that it was. But the last play of the game, for them to go ahead on 4th down and goal, that's not the biggest thing in the game in regards to what he did. Yeah, everything that he did in the game, pass breakups, pass deflections, great tackling. Yes, that shut all of that down, but let's not just think of that play as that's all that he did. That's all that he's known for. Yes, that play will go down in history. And yes, since Alabama won, it's like part of me is, feeling good that Alabama won. But another part of me is just like, dang, because that happened on my cousin. The play happened on my cousin. And I don't want that play to make it feel as though that's all we know him for. Like I told y'all, he is a NFL caliber cornerback, having a phenomenal year. Came from Oregon, played 2 years at Auburn, having a phenomenal year. Really, to be honest with you, he's Auburn's cornerback number 1. So yes, this play happened, and I really feel sorry for you, DJ. I really do. But it's going to take time, and we're going to move forward. You're going to move forward. You're going to go to the NFL. You're going to be a great cornerback in the NFL. Everything besides that one play, everything in the game that you did was good. Everything that you did in the game was good. But that one play, I don't want none of y'all to crucify this dude off of that one play. When if you look at the whole game, he had a good game. That's what we're not going to do. You can't do that. So, Jalen Milroe going back. Jalen Milroe could have been the reason why we won the game. Jalen Milroe could have been the reason why we lost the game. And he made a good throw. He made a great throw to Isaiah Bond. He put it right where he needed to. Couple of steps from the out of bounds marker, so that way Isaiah Bond could catch the ball, have a foot down at least, and still be able to maintain control of the ball. Jalen Milroe is the best player on the team. If Jalen Milroe doesn't have a good game, then Alabama doesn't flow. They look like a better team from week 2 when they lost to Texas all the way until now. They're a better team right now. We will be getting into all of that, the college football rankings that did come out yesterday. We will be getting in all of that soon. But if it wasn't for the crucial mistake of Coy Moore dropping the punt, muffing the punt, Auburn could have easily got the ball, and based on how they were playing the whole game in regards to running the football up and down the field on Alabama, they could have easily drained the clock, and Alabama would have lost that game. So yes, DJ's gonna take. There's gonna be more blame to him, but it's a team effort. It's collective as a team, but Alabama made it through by the skin of their teeth. They almost lost this game. That field goal could have came back and bit them because they could have drove down the field and only needed a field goal to win the game or go ahead, and who knows what would have happened. But that missed field goal was crucial. But Alabama still, luck by the skin of teeth, whatever you want to call it, came back down the field. And on 4th and 30, after a bad snap going like 20 yards, and then Jalen Milroe on the 3rd down did an illegal forward pass. He went past the line of scrimmage, so then it was a penalty and it was a loss of down. And with all of that, Jalen Milroe made a phenomenal throw to Isaiah Bond to win the game. Those type of throws for Jalen Milroe are big time throws. Those are the throws that he is going to have in his career at Alabama. He's going to have those. He needs to have those type of games, those him moments, those game changer moments. Jalen Milroe could be a better version of Jalen Hurts. He could be a way better version. He's a better athlete. He's faster. He's bigger. He has a better arm. In college, he has to keep on developing. Is he going to be like a Bryce Young? Is he going to be like a Tua in regards to instincts and reading coverages at the moment and the ages that they were at when they were able to do that? No, he's not going to be like that. But he can be a game changer in other ways. Nick Saban hasn't had that type of quarterback that can beat you running the football. He hasn't had no one that's literally can beat you running the football, running over 100 yards. His play style hasn't fit with Alabama in regards to history. But now since Nick Saban has that, now he has to figure out a way to build a playbook to better Jalen Milroe, not only as a runner, but as a pocket passer. And you saw in the game with Jalen Milroe, he was running out the pocket, but his first instinct wasn't just, okay, if he doesn't see no one open, he's going to automatically just go and run. He was trying to be a pocket passer. He's trying to look down the field, trying to look for receivers, and then if it all comes a little bit too close, he'll use his legs to escape. He's trying to grow as a quarterback. So if Alabama wants to get to where it's at in regards to being dynamic and being at the top of the college football, NCAA, being, like Georgia, winning all of these football games, it all starts with Jalen Milroe. If he can develop to a great pocket passer, or even just a good pocket passer, with his leg ability, he can beat you in so many ways. Alabama can be very dangerous. And once they get the wide receivers, better wide receivers, better running backs, because obviously none of these running backs, like your Roydell Williams, like your Jace McClellan, they're not like Jahmyr Gibbs. You know what I'm saying? They're not like a Jahmyr Gibbs. They're not like a Najee Harris. They're not like game changers. So he's really doing it with less talent. But it all starts with Jalen Milroe. If Jalen Milroe can carry these troops, guide these troops to where they need to be, Alabama can be something serious for years to come. Not saying that they are now, because you have Nick Saban as the coach, but Jalen Milroe can be a true game changer for Alabama. Him alone. But yes, Alabama did end up winning 27-24 in a great game. In my personal opinion, I think that was the best rivalry game of the day. And that's not even me being biased. That's not even me being an Alabama fan. It just felt like it was just back and forth. And that's what I love about it. So Alabama does play Georgia in Georgia plays Alabama in the SEC championship game. That'll be something. I honestly believe, yes, Georgia has not lost in 2 years, but the last time that they lost was against Alabama. Does Georgia have a better team than Alabama? It's kind of hard to say, because Georgia really hasn't played nobody. Carson Beck is a good quarterback, but I don't know if he's truly that game changer. They do have Brock Bowers, and Brock Bowers is a beast. No question about it. So I will probably say Georgia has the better team, but I still wouldn't be surprised if Alabama comes in to the SEC championship and ends up winning. And if they end up winning against Georgia, we're going to have questions about should Alabama be in the college football playoffs. But we're not going to talk about that just yet. We're going to wait until later down in the show when we talk about all the college football rankings. But I do have Alabama beating Georgia, but I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia does win. Georgia has been looking like the best team in the country. They haven't lost in 2 years, back-to-back national champions. I wouldn't be surprised if they do go on and beat Alabama. But don't be shocked, y'all. I'm going to come back like I told y'all. With Nick Saban, anything is possible. Even with the loss to Texas at the beginning of the season where Jalen Milroe back then was not looking like Jalen Milroe now, you can see that the team has grown from week to week to week. They have been hot from week to week to week. Don't let Alabama get in the college football playoffs. Don't let them get in the college football playoffs. They're a hot team right now, a very, very, very hot team right now. Ever since that Texas game, been winning, beating teams, and it's like beating teams, beating a tough LSU team, beating a tough Ole Miss team, a very tough Ole Miss team, beating some pretty good teams, beating Tennessee, which in that game, Tennessee was actually beating Alabama. So they come in the second half and they completely destroyed Tennessee. So it's going to be very interesting. Alabama's hot right now. It's going to be very interesting in the SEC championship who does end up winning. Like I said, I have Alabama winning the SEC championship. So let me know what y'all think. But going back to the whole last play of the game, DJ James had a very good game. So for those of y'all that say that he didn't have a good game and y'all are just basing it off of the one play which will go down in history, go look at the stats. He had a good game. Go look at the game itself. Had a very good game. So I'm going to just let that breathe right there because that's my cousin. Because he was getting, I was seeing everything on Twitter and it was not good. I had to come and talk about that. I had to defend him. NFL caliber. DJ, if you're looking at this, you are an NFL caliber cornerback. So let's move on to the other rivalry game. Let's move on to the other rivalry game. You had Michigan for a third straight year defeating Ohio State 30-24 at home to keep their playoff chances alive. Michigan defense forces an interception from Kyle McCord, trying to look for Marvin Harrison over the middle, but he got hit while he was looking for him, and Michigan ends up picking it off at the end of the game. Michigan will play number 18 Iowa for the Big 10 championship. J.J. McCarthy, 16 of 20, 148 yards, 1 TD. Blake Corum, my personal opinion, is the best running back in the nation. He had 22 carries for 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. Donovan Edwards, 10 carries, 31 yards, including that throw in the fourth quarter, that one-on-one for 34 yards. That was very, very crucial. Very, very crucial. The leading receiver was Colston Loveland, 5 catches, 88 yards. You had Roman Wilson, again, the first touchdown of the game, the second touchdown of the game, should I say. 3 receptions, 36 yards, 1 TD. Cornelius Johnson, 4 receptions, 33 yards. And Kyle McCord, 18 of 30, 271 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, one of them coming in the first quarter, which ended up resulting in points for Michigan. In the last one, like I said, he was looking for Marvin Harrison over the middle to try to get a go-ahead lead for Ohio State at the end of the game, and it ended up getting picked because he had ended up getting hit. You had Travion Henderson, 19 carries, 60 yards, and 1 TD. Marvin Harrison is going to get his, obviously, 5 receptions, 118 yards, 1 TD. Julian Fleming, 3 catches, 58 yards. And Emeka Abuka had a touchdown, 3 receptions, 25 yards. Now, Ohio State, the fact that you have lost 3 straight years to Michigan State is your daddy. Michigan State is your daddy. I don't care what y'all try and say. Y'all have not beat these teams, and they didn't even have Harbaugh as their coach. They didn't even have their head coach, and y'all still lost. Y'all still lost to them 3 straight years. That is absolutely ridiculous. And the crazy thing about it, y'all never even uh, led the whole game. Y'all never led the whole entire game. Y'all tied it up at 17. But the crazy thing about it, it felt as though Michigan, once their offensive lineman got hurt, very next play, they got a touchdown. It felt as though that was like the extra momentum that they needed to propel their way to victory. After they got hurt, after the O lineman got hurt, number 65, after he got hurt, the next play, Blake Corum ran it for a 20-yard touchdown, and Ohio State has never even allowed a 20-yard touchdown the entire season. So right when Blake Corum did the 20-yard touchdown, he put the 6-5 up just for him. That was like, hey, we're going to win this game for 65. This game is strictly for him. We don't know if he's coming back just yet. By the looks of it, I don't know if he's going to come back. I'll have to look at the stats, the injury report. I'll have to look at that. But Blake Corum ran it in for a 20-yard touchdown, and that was like the propeller to win the game. That was like their momentum to win the game. Ohio State, what killed y'all is, I ain't gonna lie, it was the first interception. The first interception killed y'all, and it was the field goal right before halftime to make it 13-14. Make it 13-14. You don't throw that interception in the first quarter, that results in a whole touchdown. That's 7 points right there. You get that field goal right at the end of halftime. You make it 13-14 going into the second half. And now you have the momentum. Now you're like, okay, we scored right before halftime. We stop them. We can go and score a touchdown, score a field goal. So with that in mind, that's exactly what killed them. Marvin Harrison is going to get his. Marvin Harrison is, my opinion, is the best skill player in college football. Best wide receiver in college football. He's going to get his. He's going to get his receptions. He's going to get his targets. He's going to get his touches. Going to get his yards. He's going to get his TDs, all of that. Kyle McCord, you can't throw those interceptions. You just cannot throw those interceptions at all. And Ohio State, like, you had a good running game. You were in the game. It's just y'all never led the entire way. Y'all never had that momentum of, okay, we're in the lead. We can just hold on. Yes, it's a tough environment going into Michigan, but it felt as though y'all never had it from the jump because y'all never had the lead. Y'all tied it at 17 with Travion Henderson going in for a goal line touchdown. But after that, it's just y'all could never get that lead. And another thing that killed Ohio State was the fact that Michigan was converting on their fourth downs. They were converted on each and every one of those fourth down conversions. If you stop them on any one of those fourth down conversions, who knows, they could actually turn that into some points. Because Michigan was playing risky. Michigan was like, hey, this is a rivalry, so we're going to take as many chances as we possibly can. We're not going to come out with possessions with 3 points. We're going to come out with possessions with 7 points. We're coming out with touchdowns. And that's how you got to play with rivalries. 3 points isn't enough. You got to come out with the mentality of each and every possession, we're trying to get a touchdown. We're trying to get a touchdown. And Michigan going forward on each and every one of those fourth downs, it feels like, and they were converting on it. Ohio State just couldn't stop it. Kyle McCord, this was the game for him to not just be that game manager like he was the whole way of the season. Ohio State, obviously, they played Penn State, and that was probably the only game where he didn't really have to, manage the game, but he still managed the game. But everybody else, they haven't faced no Michigan to where when it's really under pressure, can Kyle McCord come through and get the W? And we saw it full swing that Kyle McCord cannot get the W for Ohio State. So it's a huge drop from C.J. Stroud to Kyle McCord. It's a huge drop. But Kyle McCord just got to come in, not be that game manager. He has to break the game. The same thing that I said about Jalen Milroe. Now, obviously, Jalen Milroe's talent is way better than Kyle McCord's. But you being a quarterback, you cannot just be that game manager. You just can't. You got to have those moments where, okay, I'm him. I can go and make that throw. You got to have those. And when it all came down to it, yes, he got hit. And the crazy thing about it, Marvin Harrison was open over the middle. He was open. If he doesn't get hit, Marvin Harrison catches that ball, and who knows? Ohio State could have messed around and won that game. They could have messed around and won that game. But he got hit, and Michigan ends up capitalizing on it with the interceptions. Those 2 turnovers killed them. Those 2 interceptions killed them, man. And the field goal, it killed them. So Michigan will be playing Iowa, and Iowa isn't no joke. Their defense, Iowa has always had a defense. Iowa for these past years have always had a pretty good defense. It's just the offense. Can that offense get rolling? But I don't think that offense can get rolling. It's just going to be that defense versus Michigan offense, and I'll take Michigan's offense over Iowa's defense. It's not going to be as an easy game as people would think, but I honestly think that Michigan will win the game, though. I honestly believe that Michigan will win the game, but it's not going to be it's not going to be an easy 64-0 game, 56-7 or something like that. Nah, Michigan's going to start off slow in that game. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan starts off slow in that game. Wouldn't be surprised. But Michigan will come out with the W. I feel like out of all the games, Michigan is probably the most likely to come out with the W in regards to making it to the college football playoffs, which we will be talking about here in a little bit. So, Michigan, good W against Ohio State. Ohio State, Ryan Day, I don't know if he can get you over the hump. He's a very good coach, but can he beat the Michigans? It's 3 straight years of you losing to Michigan, and this year was the worst one in my personal opinion because Michigan didn't even have their head coach. He was literally in the hotel, probably in the hotel room smoking cigars after, you know what I'm saying? So with that in mind, can Ryan Day get these boys over the hump to beat Michigan? Because that's what we all anticipate. When we anticipate the college football season, we know that Ohio State and Michigan is probably going to be the biggest game in regards to who's going to make the playoffs and who's not going to make the playoffs. For these past couple of years, if whoever wins that game, they're going to make it to the college football playoffs. That's literally like a college football playoff matchup in the season, because we know that those 2 schools are going to knock each other out. We know that both of those schools are one of the best teams in the nation. So we know when it comes down to the last game of the season, that's the game that both schools circle. That's the game that Michigan and Ohio State both circle. They know after every single year, they know that Michigan for Ohio State, that's the team we have to beat. For Michigan, they circle Ohio State. It's not Penn State. Penn State can't beat either one of those teams. It's not Maryland. It's not none of those teams. It's not Nebraska. None of those teams. They know that when the schedule comes out for each and every one of those seasons, that Michigan, that's the team we have to beat. Ohio State, that's the team that we have to beat. If we beat them, we control our own destiny. And that's just how it is. So for Ryan Day, it's been his 3rd straight year since he lost to Michigan. Something has to change. Something has to change. Is he going to get you over the hump? Who knows? He got him over the hump 1 year to make it, but it's been 3 straight years now since he's lost. So something has to change. Something has to change. I'm not saying he get fired, but something has to change. Personnel has to change, talent, something has to change in order for you to beat Michigan, because they're your daddy they're your daddy at this point. Sorry to say it. So like I said, I feel like Michigan will beat Iowa for the Big Ten championship, and they will advance to the college football playoffs. So we're going to look at the college football playoff rankings. They came out yesterday, and I was actually watching it, and I was like, there is no possible way that I'm really looking at what I'm looking at. So we're going to just look at the top 8 teams. We're going to look at the top 8 teams because those teams are the 8 teams that can potentially, if they win they can make the college football playoffs. So you have Georgia at number 1. You have Georgia at number 1. You have Michigan at number 2, which after the W, they had to go to number 2 because Ohio State was number 2. You have Washington at 3. You have Florida State at 4. Oregon at 5. Ohio State drops to 6. You have Texas at 7, and you have Alabama at 8. I feel like Ohio State should not be at 6, and I'm going to tell you why. All of these teams except for Ohio State are playing for a championship. They're playing for something that if they win, they can potentially make it to the college football playoffs. So with that in mind, how can Ohio State be ranked ahead of Texas or Alabama and they're not playing for nothing? It doesn't make no sense. Each and every one of those teams are playing for something. And if they win, they control their own destiny. Or some of them, if they do win, they got to get some help to make it to the college football playoffs. So when we're looking at the college football playoffs, another thing, are we going to look at the college football playoffs? The committee says the 4 best teams. Are we going to look at the college football playoffs for the 4 best teams, or are we going to look at it for the 4 most deserving teams? You tell me, because if we want to have the 4 best teams, I can guarantee you that Washington is not a 4 best team. Florida State with Jordan Travis and how they played against Florida, which in that game, Florida was beating Florida State all the way until 7 minutes and 32 seconds in the fourth quarter. And they were up 12-0 against them. And it felt as though Florida State was finna get boat race if they didn't really get it together. They don't look like a top 4 team without Jordan Travis. They just don't. So you can't put them at number 4. Yes, they're undefeated. But if we're looking at the best teams, I feel as though Florida State will lose to Ohio State. I feel like they'll lose to Oregon. I feel like they'll lose to Texas. And I feel like they'll lose to Alabama. Because Florida State, they don't have Jordan Travis. It's the 4 best teams. It's not the deserving teams. And even with Washington, I feel like Washington will lose to Texas. I feel like Washington will lose to Alabama. I feel like they'll lose to Oregon. I feel like they'll lose to an Ohio State. We're not trying to have a college football playoff like last year or years in the past to where a number 1 seed is significantly better than a number 4 seed, or a number 1 seed is better than a number 3 seed. We don't need to have a Georgia versus a TCU in a 63-7 shellacking where we just sit here to ourselves and we're like, dang, should TCU make it to the college football playoffs? Should they have been in? When the crazy thing was they lost in the championship. They lost in the Big 12 championship to Kansas State. You want to know who was 5? Alabama. Do you want to know who TCU played in the championship? Kansas State. Do you want to know who Alabama played in the Sugar Bowl? Kansas State. What happened? One lost, TCU, and they still made it because of the deserving factor of it. And then you have Alabama that comes out and literally blows out Kansas State. So it's like we know that Alabama is better than Florida State. We know that Texas is better than Florida State. They don't have Jordan Travis. We know that both of those teams are better than Washington. So if we're going to do the 4 best teams, if we're going to say that the committee is trying to put in the 4 best teams, it has to be Georgia, Michigan, Texas, and Alabama. Those, in my opinion, are the 4 best teams. And I'm going to tell you why. Oregon at 5, I feel like Oregon has Bo Nix, and the crazy thing about it, Bo Nix is fixing to win the Heisman, and I absolutely do not love that Bo Nix is going to win the Heisman. And I'm going to tell you why. Bo Nix started off at Auburn. Nothing went well for him too much at Auburn. It was very underwhelming at Auburn. He goes to Oregon. Now, we know the Pac-12 defenses is not that good. We all know that the Pac-12 is not that good. So when Oregon comes and plays Georgia's first game of the season, he got absolutely destroyed. Got absolutely destroyed by Georgia. But he's the leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy. You have Jaden Daniels, which if it wasn't for his defense letting him down and allowing all of these points, he has better stats than Joe Burrow. He should be the one that's winning the Heisman if it wasn't for his defense. But we have Bo Nix fixing to be the Heisman Trophy winner. With that being said, Oregon played Texas Tech and they almost lost. They literally almost lost that game. Yes, it was on the road, but Texas Tech is still Texas Tech. And you're the number 5 ranked team in the country. Texas played Texas Tech last week, and they got absolutely destroyed. Texas blew out Texas Tech by over 50 points. So if we go based off of common opponent, Texas and Texas Tech got blitzed by over 50, and then you have Oregon that won by 1 score. So with that in mind, Texas is a better team than Oregon, because the same people that don't want to say that are going to be the same people that say if Georgia beats Alabama, then Texas should be in because Texas beat Alabama, Alabama beat Georgia, so that means that Texas is better than all of them. You have to put it both ways. So I wouldn't be surprised if y'all do say that Texas, if they do win and Florida State loses, then they're in, or somehow, some way that they are in. But I really do feel as though SEC ball is just different from Pac-12. I feel as though that it's different from Pac-12, and I feel like it's different from ACC. Florida State is not a good team without Jordan Travis. He's not a good team. It's not the same team, and you clearly saw it in the Florida game. Literally, Tate Rodemaker, 12 of 25, 134 yards. Mind you, like I had told y'all, they didn't lead the game until 7 minutes and 32 seconds in the fourth quarter. So Florida, if it wasn't for them not being disciplined towards the end of the game, they could have easily won the game. So Florida State, that doesn't make them, when you look at the eye test, they don't make them one of the 4 best teams in the nation. It just doesn't. Georgia, I can give you Georgia. Georgia, they haven't lost in over 2 years. They've been running through every single team. I can give you that. Michigan, I feel as though they have the biggest win as of right now in the nation with them beating Ohio State. So, yes, they have to be in it. Those 2 teams, if they win, then they're in. That's just a lot. It's just interesting with Washington and Florida, how you're going to play that off. Do you truly believe that if Florida State does win, but Texas wins too, do you feel as though Florida State should somehow, some way be out of it? Or do you feel as though if Georgia loses to Alabama, because if Georgia loses to Alabama, how is that going to work out? Would you put a 1-loss Georgia who hasn't lost in over 2 years, and this is going to be their first loss, would you keep them in the college football playoffs? Would you have them be at like 4, or would you drop them completely out, put Alabama in, or would you put Texas in? Would you take out Florida State because of the simple fact that Alabama beat Georgia? Like, this whole thing can be chaotic quick. This is probably the year of, this could potentially be the most chaotic. This could be the most chaotic championship week that we have ever seen with the college football playoffs. Because none of these games, except for the Michigan-Iowa game, is easy, should I say. And even with that game, it's not easy. Georgia can easily lose to Alabama because Alabama has beat Georgia. They were the last team to beat them. Washington can easily lose to Oregon, in which I honestly believe that Oregon can beat Washington, because in that game, Oregon, if it wasn't for that miss to take it to overtime, they could have won that game. And they're on paper and by the eye test, they're a better team than Washington, especially now, because ever since that game, they've been beating teams. And I personally believe that Oregon is going to beat Washington. This rematch, they're going to beat them. Florida State is not easy because they don't have Jordan Travis. Yes, Louisville lost to Kentucky, but those teams, like, it's just, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's just an easy cakewalk against Louisville. Even though Louisville hasn't played nobody for real and they just lost to Kentucky last week, I don't feel as though it's going to be a real cakewalk. So this college football playoffs can be real deal crazy. If I had to pick my teams, if I had to personally pick my teams on who I think will make it, I honestly believe Michigan is going to beat Iowa. Michigan's going to beat Iowa, so they're automatically in. That's one. You have Oregon at 5. They're going to beat number 3 Washington. So I feel like if they win, I feel as though they should be in. Florida State, even though they're undefeated, even if they beat Louisville, I don't feel as though that they are a lock to make it in the college football playoffs because of the simple fact. If Alabama beats Georgia, like I told y'all earlier in this podcast, you have Alabama could potentially make the playoffs. And if Texas wins against if Texas wins against Oklahoma State, they can potentially make the college football playoffs. So it's like Florida State, I don't know. So Michigan, Oregon, I feel like Texas should be in if Alabama and they win. And I feel like Alabama should be that 4th team. They should be that 4th team. The reason why is because Texas beat Alabama. Yes, they're a different team, but you have to put head to head in the category, and consider that. Because if Texas somehow doesn't make it, even if they win, we're going to look at the college football playoffs and be like, head to head doesn't matter. We kind of already look at it right now as common opponents don't matter because of the simple fact Oregon is ahead of Texas, and they both played Texas Tech, and one almost lost and one blew Texas Tech out by over 50 points. So with that in mind, you have to put something in consideration. You have to put the simple fact that a SEC team, I'm sorry, a SEC team has to make the college football playoffs. It's not me being biased, but we all know that any SEC team, if it's Georgia, Alabama, they can beat any one of these teams. They're one of the best teams. If we just look at it, Georgia can beat all of these teams. Alabama, even with them being at 8, can beat all of these teams. They can beat all of these teams. The only team that I see them really even struggling with is Georgia. And that's not even me being my biased Alabama fan that I am. But the SEC is just different type of ball. It's a different type of animal. The competition level is different. The athletes, the talent that you have there, you have talent everywhere. But the talent and the skill gap is different. It's not like college basketball, how any team can win. No. If you have a good team, a very good team, versus a team with, for the most part, 2 to 3 stars, in football, you're going to win. The 5-star team is going to win. That's the reality of the situation. We've never seen a college football playoff without an SEC school. Never seen one with the SEC school. And I feel like it shouldn't change. It should be, okay, we know it's a deserving thing, but at the end of the day, it's the entertaining aspect to your audience. That's what it is too. Because we all knew that Georgia was going to beat TCU. And we don't want the same thing with Georgia versus Florida State. We don't want that. Or Georgia versus Washington. We don't want that. Yes, it's deserving, but what are you going to make it, committee? What are you going to make the college football playoffs? Are you going to make it the 4 best teams or the 4 most deserving teams? Because the 4 most deserving, I didn't even give y'all my list for the 4 most deserving. The 4 most deserving teams is Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and I would personally say Texas. I would say Texas is more deserving than Florida State. I just do. Because they're over Oregon because of the common team. So with that in mind, and I feel like they're better than Florida State, I just feel as though in the competition level, I feel as though Texas should be that team. Should be that team, that 4 team. But if we're going to list the best 4 teams, it's Georgia, Michigan, Texas, Alabama. That's the 4. Number 5, I will probably have to say Ohio State, 6, Oregon, and 7, I would say Florida State, and 8, Washington. That's how the list would go because we all know the competition level is way different. So, with that in mind, this championship week can easily turn upside down and it can be crazy for every one of these teams. None of these teams are at a lock right now. None of these teams are at a lock right now. At any point in time, they could easily just lose to one of these teams. The only team that I feel as though, like I said, that is a lock is Iowa. Not Iowa, Michigan beating Iowa. But Iowa has a good defense, so who knows? But if Georgia beats Alabama, they're automatically in. I feel like if Alabama wins against Georgia, they should be in. I feel as though Florida State, even though if they do win, they're not a 4 best team. They're just not. So with that in mind, and you're going to have people that be like, well, you shouldn't penalize Florida State for winning. They're not a 4 best team. They're just not. You have to take somebody out, and especially if Texas win, somebody has, there's going to be some movement. And if Alabama wins, there's going to be some movement. Needless to say, Ohio State is 100% out of it. I feel as though they should be 100% out of it because they're not playing nobody. Every single one of those teams are going to try and make the college football playoffs and win a championship. I feel as though after that game against Michigan and the fact that they lost 3 straight years, they should have dropped all the way behind Alabama because they're not playing for nothing. So let me know what y'all top 4 is going to be. Let me know who y'all think is going to win. Like I said, Alabama's beating Georgia. Michigan's beating Iowa. Oregon is going to beat Washington. And then I have Texas beating Oklahoma State. And my top 4 is going to be Georgia. No, not Georgia. My top 4 is going to be Michigan, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. If it goes the way that I want it to go. That's how I feel it should be. But let me know what y'all think. So with that in mind, that is the end of this podcast episode. If y'all made it to the end, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, turn on them post notifications to get the latest updates on when I post a full Real Spill Wednesday or a full podcast episode. I'm going to try and get y'all 2 podcast episodes. I'm trying to get y'all that. So with that in mind, I love each and every one of y'all. And with that in mind, y'all have a nice rest of y'all night.